This is officially the Tom Bombadil chapter of the Two Towers. What are taters? Potatoes. The Helm's Deep scene is like nothing. Is Wormtongue in this? I hate him. Ew. Ew. Hey guys, so today we're going to be finally getting to part 2 of my Lord of the Rings series. It was 2 years ago that I did part 1 to this, so if you haven't watched that video, I would recommend watching that one first. It would make a little bit more sense context-wise to watch part 1. So obviously I've seen all the films, all the extended editions, love the movies, and I was like, maybe I should read the books because I want to do like a book to movie comparison. That was the main concept when I first started it. So the first video is part 1, which is the Fellowship of the Ring. So it's book 1 and 2 because it's 6 books within 1 book. And so this video is part 2 for the Two Towers, which is book 3 and 4. And I'm not waiting another 2 years until I do the next one. I'm not waiting that long. So look out for Return of the King, which will come out eventually. It should be soon because I really want to get onto it. After doing this video, I was like, I need to read the 3rd book. So a quick disclaimer, like with my other video, I haven't read the books. I'm a movie fan. The idea for this series is to compare the books and the movies. I'm not like a knowledge geek when it comes to Lord of the Rings, like the books and the lore. Like, I don't know that shit. This is me reading the books for the first time. So it's all very new, very fresh for me. What I love is that you guys can put all your knowledge down in the comments for all the shit that I talk about. Just like correct me or expand on it. Say whatever you like in the comments. I love doing this, comparing the film or TV show to the source material and seeing like what's done better or worse, what they put in, what they left out. I think it's just kind of fun. So it's gonna be intercut with like editing me, post reading me, past reading me, vlog like portioned. It's all gonna kind of be interconnected, just my random thoughts about the book. So I guess let's get straight into the vlog portion of this video.
There's something strange at work here. Some evil gives speed to these creatures.
Okay, we're starting. It is currently, what time is it? It is 6:45 p.m. It's a Thursday. This is gonna be over like a few days. I mean, work, normal stuff. So yeah, we're gonna be reading the 2nd book, Two Towers. As you can see, like with the other copies for the 1st and 3rd book, they are old as shit. I have the audiobook as like my other video. I'm going to be reading and audio at the same time. I just enjoy it more that way. I don't know, I like having the audible experience as well as physically reading at the same time. I just feel more engaged in the story. People who say that audiobooks isn't real reading, like, you guys can just fuck off. I'm sorry. Like, that opinion frustrates the hell out of me. I'm like, not all people can read physical books like normally. That's why they were made. I'm just, okay, if I go on to that tangent, I'm gonna get really frustrated. I'm very excited to see how they're going to translate this book. We shall see. I'm set up, I have my tea, I have my candles, I have my heater going, I'm nice and comfy, so I guess let's just jump into Two Towers.
I would have followed you, my brother, my captain, my king.
But where are the ring and the bearer? How shall I find them and save the quest from disaster?
What the fuck? I'm literally 2 pages into this book and Boromir's... I think one of my like last comments in my previous video was like, does Boromir die? When does Boromir die? Like, does he die in this book? What the hell? Literally, I'm like on page, I'm telling you, page 2 of this book. We hear the Horn of Gondor and Aragorn just turns up and Boromir is just dying with an arrow in his chest against the tree and he just dies. Why was this not at the end of the Fellowship book? We all know, everyone knows that it's one entire book, right? Everyone knows that, but it's been separated into 6 chapters. How is this the start of one of the chapters? Well, I mean, it's throwing you straight back into the book. I'm straight back into it again, but that makes, huh? Wouldn't have been my choice. I would have put this at the end of Fellowship. But, yeah, okay.
Riders of Rohan!
Chapter 2 is the Riders of Rohan. Yay! One thing that I'm actually really curious about is how they're going to format this. Because obviously this is book 3 and for. I'm assuming it's like gonna be in the film, not in regards to the structure, but in regards to the stories. I'm assuming it's Aragorn, Legolas, and Gimli. And then we got Merry and Pippin with the Ents, and then we have Gollum, Sam, and Frodo. So like, I'm assuming it's like the 3 different parties. But what I'm curious about is how are they gonna write this? God, just reading this first chapter, I'm already like, oh my God, I love this so much. I love it already. Oh, I'm so excited. I don't know why did I wait so long to like read this?
What business does an elf, a man, and a dwarf have in the Riddermark?
Oh my God, I love that the movie included these quotes. So, okay, so we've met the writers and we've been introduced to how does it say? Aemir. Carl Urban, right? So we're meeting him, right? And I love in the movies, they included these 2 quotes. I would cut off your head, beard, and all, Master Dwarf, if it stood but a little higher from the ground. And then Legolas's response was like, you would die before your stroke fell. I feel like, are they the quotes in the movie? They're very close, extremely close.
I would cut off your head, dwarf, if it stood but a little higher from the ground.
You would die before your stroke fell.
Carl Urban. Amazing. I'm so happy we've met his character.
You're a doe.
Fun, yay. But you know what I mean? When you hear like little random quotes and I'm like, yes, they included that. I was really hoping that they were gonna have they're taking the hobbits to Isengard.
They're taking the hobbits to Isengard!
I don't know if that'll end up happening or if it's just pretty much just a meme from the movie. But if they have that quote in the book, I will be very happy.
Where was Gondor when the Westfall fell? Where was Gondor when our enemies closed in around us?
Okay, I don't know if I'm forgetting something, right? But I know that in the movies they mention how like Rohan and Gondor don't get on. I'm trying to remember the context in the films. Like Éomer is like talking about how great Boromir was and how everyone spoke so highly of him. The Grave Men of Gondor prove a great captain to their people. So are they not on bad terms? I know Denethor just gets all like pissy and shit about how like Theoden like abandons Gondor or some shit when they don't, obviously. I'm curious about how Denethor is going to get portrayed in this because I fucking hate him in the movies. I hate him so much. Are like Gondor and Rohan like not mates in this? Or are they mates? I don't know. I kind of like their little like the little bitterness between the two of them. It's kind of fun, but maybe they're not. I find it so cute, but also kind of funny. Where Legolas and Gimli sharing a horse. Éomer is like giving them horses, right? And Legolas is like, yeah, I don't need the saddle. Like, take it off. Like, I don't need it. And he just like jumps on. He's an elf. And then Gimli like gets on with him and he like clings to him. So all I'm imagining right now is Gimli sitting on a horse with Legolas just hugging him around his waist with his head like rested on his back. They're like not best mates, but they're like really close. They're like close friends. Because in the films they're like kind of frenemies, kind of. You know, like they have a little sort of like their banter and everything like that because, you know, elves and dwarfs don't get on. But in here they're like mates. It's super cute. I love it. And I'm just picturing like Gimli just hugging Legolas on a horse. I think Legolas and Gimli, the development of their relationship is very natural in the films. In the films you kind of have like 3 stages to their friendship. You know, in the first film they're not really friends. They don't want to be friends. In the second film they're kind of like having little bits of banter and making fun of each other, developing that friendship. And then in the last one, they like very much accept like friends with an elf, like that they're good friends.
I thought I'd die fighting side by side with an elf.
What about side by side with a friend?
Whereas in the book, they're fast friends. It's very quick, I think, that them getting along with each other. Like you kind of have to force them getting along because their journey, their objective and everything, they're on the same journey. So they kind of have to be on the same page and, you know, get along-ish at least, but they're very fast friends in the book. I like the development in the film more. I just feel like it's a more natural progression from kind of hate, pretty much hate, to, you know, love, like friendship, loving each other.
Hey! Hey, you! Over here! Hey! Over here! This way!
One difference I really like that they implemented into the movies was Merry and Pippin distracting the Uruk-hai and them getting captured so then Frodo could escape. Their initial reaction straight away was to just sacrifice themselves for the greater good. Because they're speaking in the book about how Elrond didn't want them to be part of the Fellowship, didn't want them to come along, but Gandalf was like, no, there's more purpose and reason, you know, for them to be part of it. They like actually, with their actions, represented their commitment to Frodo and the ring and that journey. All the orcs know is that they're looking for halflings, you know, and they see two of them and they just take them and they sacrifice themselves pretty much. But in the book that they don't do that. They just sort of got taken. I don't know, I just like that very subtle change, that very like it's not even a lot, but I kind of like it in the films. I like in the movies that they kind of substitute that little bit in. Unless I'm forgetting something in the Fellowship. Maybe it happened at the end of the Fellowship and I'm like forgetting. If it happened in the book, my bad. And I just don't remember it.
We ain't had nothing but maggoty bread for 3 stinking days.
Okay, this Uruk-hai chapter with like the orcs, the goblins, this chapter is going on for so long.
0, 3.
0.
3.
And it's just like the same shit. The same shit. It's about Merry and Pippin being picked up and then thrown on the ground. Like every couple of pages. Yes, you're mentoring the riders of Rohan. Okay. Oh, they're a day behind. Oh, they're still a day behind. Oh, they're still a day behind. Okay, well, when are they going to catch up to you and kill you all? Like, this chapter's... Oh my god. They're giving the names for, like, particular orcs. And, like, okay, you're establishing characters for, like, the Uruk-hai and orcs and stuff. But, is it necessary? If they're characters that come back around later, then okay, having their names is important and everything. And it's probably, like, yes, it's world building, that makes sense. It's a fantasy book. Yeah, okay. But I'm like... I don't care about Ugluk. I do not care about Ugluk. And Grishnak? Grishnak? Can they just fuck off already? Like, just hurry up and just kill them all, please. Thank you. I would appreciate it. I think the orcs having names is so pointless. I'm sorry. Yeah, in their chapter, right? Yes, their names are introduced, but they die at the end of their chapter. They never come back. If they were reintroduced, if they were reoccurring in the rest of the book... Yes, it would make sense for them to have names. The Rohirrim, like, the writers kill them at the end of their chapter, and then they're just gone. So I think that them having names is kind of pointless. Like, that's just my viewpoint. I feel like they could have used a lot more pages in the book to developing another character that is, like, more reoccurring and more established and more important than Ugluk. Visually in the film, they represent the importance and the sort of the hierarchy and the difference between the orcs and the goblins and the Uruk-hai and all of that. Like, there's a very distinct, like, difference between all of them visually. And I think that that's done well. You know who the leader is, you know who's, like, the high up, but they don't need names. They don't. Like, I just think that there was, yeah, no need.
Now, don't be hasty, Master Meriadoc.
Hasty?
You know what I'm just realizing? Ents are kind of like sloths when it comes to speed, right? And talking. He's talking about his name and how his name is like a story and how real names tell you the story of the things they belong to in my language, in the old Entish, as you might say. It is a lovely language, but it takes a very long time to say anything in it because we do not say anything in it unless it is worth taking a long time to say and to listen to. I would not be able to live among the Ents if that was ever possible. I couldn't. See, the thing is, in the movies, I kind of, I skip, like, the Ent scenes most of the time, or at least, like, a majority of their scenes. I think I spoke a fair amount in my, like, Two Towers video about how, like, the pacing is up and down a lot in Two Towers, and how the Ents story brings pacing down a lot and slows it down a lot. So let's see how this Treebeard chapter goes, because if it's going to be slow, like Treebeard, fuck, this is going to be a long chapter.
You are most welcome.
One thing I've realized, right? J.R.R. Tolkien loves songs, like people singing. A lot of this book is people singing songs. There's a lot of music, a lot of people humming and like singing little tales, the elves singing, everyone sings. Don't know why. Maybe he's trying to add a little something to make it a little bit more interesting. Music. Maybe he's a music person. Does anyone else kind of like skim those parts? Does anyone else skim songs and lyrics and tunes and stuff when people sing in these books? Does anyone else skim them? I'm not the only one, right? And this doesn't just mean these books. I just mean like in general, like books in general. Like maybe it's giving you a little bit more context, more world building, more information about the characters. Yeah, there's probably a purpose to it. But in regards to like holding my attention, I'm just gonna skip these parts. I got my tea for this. Is it a hot take? Maybe. I feel bad, but don't at the same time.
Tree? I am no tree.
Okay, this is officially the Tom Bombadil chapter of the Two Towers. I went to the audiobook chapter like duration because I wanted to see how long the chapters go for, right? This is the longest chapter of the entire book. It goes for 1 hour and 26 minutes. Just this chapter. This one chapter. Oh my god. I just need to get through this one because the White Wizard, I think, the White Rider, the White something is next. And then I'm assuming we're getting back to hopefully Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli. Hopefully. This goes on forever, this chapter. What? Oof. Oh god. I was thinking like maybe there's going to be like the equivalent to a Tom Bombadil in this. If you know my feelings about Tom Bombadil, if you've seen my previous video, you will know my feelings for this chapter. I have similar feelings right now. I just want everything to be fast forwarded in time.
Night lies over Isengard, said Treebeard. Chapter 5.
Yes! We finished the chapter! Everyone celebrate. We fucking got through it. People probably think I'm exaggerating. I am not exaggerating. I've been sitting here for so fucking long. Like, if that chapter, right, goes for 1 hour 25, I had it at less than 2 times speed. I was listening to this chapter for like 40 minutes. One chapter. If my math is correct. That's insane. That's too long. I'm sorry, that is too long for a bloody chapter. Like, take a break.
Have a break. Have a Kit Kat.
I can take a breath. Finally. When it comes to Merry Pippin and the Ents, the theatrical cut was perfect. I watched the extended edition. It still was okay, but there were particular scenes where I'm like, nah, don't need it. We don't need it. That's just my opinion. There were particular Ents scenes where I'm like, I don't really care. So I think the theatrical edition was perfect. The film did the Ents storyline so much better. The book just kind of went on and on and on, and it was just like, can it end? Can it end, for fuck's sake? Like, I just need this to finish. I need this to conclude. Can it conclude? Also, I really, really love how they interconnected 2 storylines together in the films, in the way that they overlap story. One of my favorite ways they did this was when Aragorn is tracking Merry and Pippin. So we have the intercut of when the orcs are being overrun by the Rohirrim, and Merry and Pippin escape and run into Fangorn Forest. We see these details and these events happen as Legolas and Gimli and Aragorn find out these things too. And I really love how they overlap those 2 stories, those 2 groups of people at the same time. It shortens the amount of time the duration in the film, so saves time, makes it more interesting because you're going back and forth between past and present. It illustrates Aragorn's skills. I find it so much better. I think that was done really well in taking two storylines and kind of combining them together. I feel like if this was written in the book this way, Aragorn saying that Merry and Pippin and this is what happened with them, I just feel like it probably wouldn't have translated as well. But in film, because you can edit, you know, to make it really work, I think that visually it looks great. It works perfectly. White Rider. Okay, so I'm assuming that Gandalf the White is going to turn up now. Yay. What time is it? It is currently, it's 9:35. And that's how much I've gone through. Like, I've gone through pretty good so far. I think that's a pretty good amount, right, to get through? Page 104 is what I'm on. Yeah, anyways, we're through the chapter. Yes, happy. How can I celebrate? Read about Gandalf. That's what I'm going to do.
Gandalf the Grey. That was my name. I am Gandalf the White.
Okay, I am done for the night. I think it is 10:10. I think that's a pretty good effort for the night. I'm up to page 129. Just finished the chapter where we met Gandalf the White. They don't call him the White Wizard. They call him the White Rider. I don't know. Like, they don't call him Gandalf the White, even though he's in all white. Do they, like, name him that later? Because they didn't in this chapter. You know what? I was thinking when I was just listening to this chapter, when I was reading this chapter, I was like, okay, I'm just going to have to come back around to the romance. Because I brought this up in the first book. I was like, are we going to meet Arwen? Because we know that there's this whole romance between Arwen and Aragorn. And now that we're going to Rohan, is Éowyn going to be there? Is it going to be the Aragorn and Éowyn thing? With that love triangle, but we haven't even set up the original romance? Is Éowyn going to be introduced soon? Like, does her name come up? I totally appreciate Éowyn in Two Towers, and after watching Return of the King, we'll talk about Return of the King in part 3 of this series and Éowyn's character. We needed a female presence, right? Because in these books, there's like no female presence. Éowyn was like there for like no scene. She was like there, she popped in, and that was it. I am so happy that they expanded on her character. Yes, the love triangle and the insta-love could have just been shoved out of the way. It wasn't really necessary from how I visualize it. I'm like, it didn't need to be there. But we need some badass females. And we see it partially in Arwen in the first movie, and we see it a lot more in the second one, and then a lot more in the third one. So Éowyn, I love her. I have a high appreciation because after reading the books, there's no female presence. And so they definitely needed to have someone. And yeah, there isn't much in the movies. There's not a lot. I think it was good that they at least expanded on one female character. Miranda Otto is great. So beautiful, love her. Is Wormtongue gonna be in this scene? Is Wormtongue in this? I hate him. Ew. The slimy little bugger. Do not like him. No one likes Wormtongue. Who likes Wormtongue? No one does. Little piece of shit. How many pages is this book? This book is... Oh, there's a map back here. 439, and I'm on 129. So I've got 310 pages left. I love that there's maps at the back here. How have I not looked at these yet? Oh, this gives such good context. Like these maps at the back of the book. Oh, I'm so interested. How are they going to do like Helm's Deep and shit? Because we haven't had like fight scenes, action scenes. Because like there's such iconic moments in the movies. Are they like big parts of the book? Oh, maybe not. Okay, let's skip forward a couple of days.
I would stay still if I were you.
Happy Saturday, everybody. We're back to it. So we're in Rohan right now. You know what I've noticed throughout this? It's happened a couple of times now. Aragorn has announced his like lineage. Like they've used his lineage as like an advantage. What I find interesting is that in the films, he's very like humble. Like as in he doesn't like people knowing that he's the heir and that he should really be king. I mentioned this in like my first video. There's a big difference in regards to the book and the films when it comes to plot focused versus character focused. The book, a lot more is focused on the plot and the world. Whereas in the films, I feel like it's a lot more character stuff, and they created a lot more of a base and a personality to Aragorn, and I feel like a lot of it is about him not wanting to acknowledge who his family is and who he should be, and that he should be king. And he's like, I want to renounce that. I don't want to be king. But like, in the books, he doesn't. As in, like, he's like, yeah, that's my name. I don't know how I feel about, like, that difference. Do you like that difference? Because they don't really make it a big thing in the book about him and, like, his history and family. At least so far, they haven't. They've, like, brought up that that's his name. And, like, even he has the sword. He gets the sword, like, it gets put back together by the elves in Return of the King. And then he gets given the sword. And that's when he's, like, he really accepts himself. But in the books, it's like he has the sword. We had an Aragorn and Éowyn moment. Okay, this is one thing that I've been thinking about, is like when they get to Rohan, Éowyn and Aragorn, sexual tension. They like brushed hands. She gave him a drink and they brushed hands. Her eyes were like, ah, like they lit up like a Christmas tree.
She paused suddenly and looked upon him, and her eyes were shining. And he looked down upon her fair face and smiled, but as he took the cup, his hand met hers, and he knew that she trembled at the touch. Hail, Aragorn, son of Arathorn, she said. Hail, Lady of Rohan, he answered. But his face now was troubled, and he didn't smile.
His face was troubled and he didn't smile. Is this because he doesn't want to lead her on? Is it because of his history with Arwen? Is there a history with Arwen? I need to know. Oh my god, does he get with Arwen or Éowyn at all? I'm focusing on the romance a lot because, like, the romance is, like, a big deal to me. Arwen and Aragorn are, like, oh my god. Ship, goals, love them. She gives up her mortality to be with him. Like, come on.
Look for your friends, but do not trust a hope that has forsaken these lands.
Because, okay, so the thing is that this is so different. Because Éomer is, like, back. The next chapter, literally in 3 pages, is Helm's Deep. Well, we're not going to get any, like, look to the east, where with the light of the 5th day. We're not going to get any of that. The Riders of Rohan. We're not going to get, okay, let's see how this goes. You know what? I'm actually really excited about this, because in Fellowship, I feel like a lot of it was there weren't too many major changes in regards to the plot progression. A lot of it was pretty on point, pretty similar. But this one is very different. Like, not the same. This just makes me more interested because now I'm wondering, like, what is the change? Like, are these good changes? Are they bad changes?
Look to my coming. At first light on the 5th day. At dawn, look to the east.
Okay, so Gandalf is abandoning them. I was like, Gandalf doesn't need to abandon them because Rohirrim is there. Like, the Rohirrim, like, all of them are there. Éomer is there. So I was like, oh, so he doesn't need to abandon them. Apparently he's abandoning them. He's like, I'll see you at Helm's Deep. You guys I'll leave you. I have a quick errand to run. That's what he said. I have an errand to run. Like, any more context? Anything. You want to tell them, maybe why one of the most powerful wizards is leaving them at this time. Give them a little bit of information about why you're abandoning them. But okay, he's abandoning them, and he said, I'll see you at Helm's Deep. I'm just gonna head off for a second, and I'll see you guys soon. Okay, I think this is making a little bit more sense now, because they brought up, what's his face? They brought up Erkenbrand, who's like one of the lords or leaders, or he's the lord of Westfold. And they were saying that he's not there, like him and his riders aren't there. So I'm assuming that that's who Gandalf is going to go find. In the film, they used Éomer as the person that he was looking for, but in this they're looking for Erkenbrand, because they're saying that, what news of Erkenbrand? Word came yesterday that he was retreating hither with all that is left of the best riders of Westfold, but he has not come. Definitely, that's who Gandalf is going to go find. So it's just a different version. We're going to have a whole heap of riders and a whole heap of horses, just taking out orcs. I think it was really smart that they chose Aemir and the riders to be who Gandalf goes after, rather than another person and another party of riders. There's so many people in the cast and ensemble, and you really need to focus on people who are reoccurring across the whole franchise, and Aemir is one of them. So I think it was really smart that they let go of particular characters and grabbed that storyline, Gandalf's storyline and his contribution, and attached it to characters who we'd already been introduced to. Also, an added scene that was put into the film that wasn't in the book was when they were ambushed from traveling to Helm's Deep. The fact that Gandalf was off and the riders were gone, they had less people to protect them, that's why more people were killed. So I think it was just a smart idea to have that little portion in Act 2. Also, I think it created a little bit of action, something to lift up a little bit, because there was no real action at all except for tiny little scenes against the orcs and all that. There was no real battle sort of stuff going on, or death.
I'm on 17!
I am so happy. We literally had a little Gimli Legolas like thing about them like counting. Gimli's like 2. And Legolas he's like 2? I have done better. If they keep this up, are they going to keep this up, or is this just like a little passing thing? This may have just been like this little like tiny little comment, but in the films they were like, let's draw this out. Let's make this like a thing. I like it. I like that it was like mentioned at least. Okay, so Helm's Deep. Within this book, the Helm's Deep scene is like nothing. Not nothing, but like it is a tiny like fraction. It is not much of this book at all. Whereas in the second film, Helm's Deep is like one of the key points of the third act. It is the third act pretty much. It is a lot more of a focus and is more drawn out in the film. But the thing is that it's interwoven and intercut with the two other storylines. So the Helm's Deep sort of situation, it feels like it's a lot of a bigger part of like the film's duration. Whereas in this book, it's literally one chapter. Like, it's just one chapter. I guess because we haven't moved on to any of Frodo and Sam's sort of interaction, their story. We've gotten none of that. And I'm assuming that that's going to be book 4. But what I want to know, I don't know if I can find this out, is like what percentage of Helm's Deep physically is actually in the film. Because it feels like it's such like a bigger part of that movie, or like the majority of that movie, but I feel like maybe it's not, but it just feels that way because it's intercut with two other storylines, whereas the book it's not, and that's why it's only like one chapter in the book. I guess as a film, they're going to structure things differently than in a book, you know? Like Helm's Deep obviously isn't a big deal. It's just a way of interconnecting certain characters and, you know, gathering forces back together and everything. Yeah, so Helm's Deep's over. That was quick. The fact that Helm's Deep was such an integral part of the film, I think, was a really smart idea. I cry every time the Rohirrim and Gandalf come down the peak. I cry. It's so epic. I think that the film chose the perfect time and the perfect portion to focus a lot of their action on. I think they couldn't have chosen a better part of that book to have their peak sort of act, their peak point in the film. Now they're onto Isengard. There's Ents here who are from Fangorn Forest, but they're here and like they're nearly at Isengard, and Gandalf's like, we're there for a parley.
Parlay? That's the one, parlay!
And he's like, I went past there earlier. Obviously, we knew at the end of the Ents storyline that they were on their way to Isengard, and we never came back to that. Yeah, I'm thinking that they're going to turn up at Isengard now, and it's just going to be, like, destroyed completely.
When last I looked, Theoden, not Aragorn, was king of Rohan.
Does anyone also kind of find like Theoden's sort of personality very different in the book than in the movie. In the movie, right, I feel like it comes off a lot more like stubborn, kind of. Not stubborn, but like he's like, Aragorn will give his opinion and he's like, I know how to hold my keep, or something like that. I can't remember his line.
I have fought many wars, Master Dwarf. I know how to defend my own keep.
He's very like forthcoming and very like, this is how we're going to do things. I'm not listening to other people. Like his personality is very different. Whereas in the book, like Merry's like a fine old fellow, very polite. I like that he's like nice and sweet in the book. I don't mind him being like more firm and like, I am the leader, I am king, no one tells me what to do. That's his personality. That's the type of king he is. Like, okay, that's fine for his portrayal in the movie. It's not like something that I see as a negative, but it's just quite interesting to see why they made that change. And I think it also comes into play with Aragorn's character a lot. Like Theoden and Aragorn's, like, their character choices, the way they were written really make sense they make sense to reflect each other in regards to like progressing plot and how they like work off each other. Whereas in this, they're just very sort of civil, you know, they're very simple and nice. They listen to each other, you know, that kind of thing. It's very different, the dynamic between the characters. Don't mind either way. I think his writing is good in both. It's just they're very different.
A hit. A fine hit.
We didn't see any of the Isengard fight with the Ents. We saw none of that. We were just kind of told it happened, and yeah, that was it. And Merry and Pip are back, so I'm happy about that. They're back in the game. I just love their like cute little personalities. They bring a lot of happiness and lightness to the story, I think. So I'm glad that they're back in the story again, because I've noticed a lot of the characters kind of like mesh into each other. There's only particular people that really stand out, and I think it's Gimli, it's Gandalf, Merry and Pippin. They kind of like more stand out as characters. I think they just have a bit more of a personality. There's something to them that really differentiates them from other people. Also, this whole Isengard chapter, Road to Isengard, a lot of it was describing the location. I feel like they completely nailed the movie. When they were describing Isengard, I was like, that is exactly how I imagine it being described as how it was written in the films. The production and like the design of Isengard, like the tower, there's a name for the tower. Fuck, I've forgotten the name of the tower. There isn't anything so far that I've found that's like, I really don't like. Other than the Treebeard chapter, nothing else is really like being like, I really don't like this. Like, can this not be a thing? Everything else has been great.
Pippin! Hold on!
Hold on, little hobbit!
So we just recounted the whole story of what happened at Isengard with the Ents and everything. Merry and Pippin were telling the story. And I feel like this is an exact example of where you should show, not tell. This chapter, I feel like that this chapter and this situation could have been written way better. When it comes to like, a lot of people say when there's exposition dumps, you can show us these things as they're happening rather than tell us afterwards and just relay the story. It has to be really interesting for it to be a better choice to tell it in past tense, as in like relaying the story after the events have happened. Like there has to be a reason why you choose to do that over actually having it in present tense as it's happening. If in the movie, for example, the end scene was completely cut out, right, where they pulled the dam and let all the water out and everything, if that was all removed, okay, and then they all turn up at Isengard as after it's flooded and Merry and Pippin are there and they just gather food and all sit around and then Merry and Pippin just tell them what happens. Like, think of it in that context, because that's what happened in the book. The film made that scene way more engaging and interesting, like part of the story. Could you imagine if they did this in the film? People would have been like, this is really boring. I think that that was a very wise decision when it came to the movie, that they didn't just turn up at Isengard and then Merry and Pippin were like, oh, this is what happened while you guys weren't here. Before you guys turned up, this is what happened. So the film definitely did that way, way better than the book, in my personal opinion.
43.
He was already dead.
He was twitching.
Okay, so we are now on to part 2. So what I'm going to do is going to be the end of today, because this has been several hours, many hours that I've been reading this today. So we're going to come back tomorrow and I'm going to read the rest of it. First half, we've gotten all of the Rohan, all of the Aragorn, all of the men, Gandalf shit done and out of the way for the book. And now I'm assuming the second half is just purely Frodo and Sam on the way to Mordor. Let's hope that I enjoy the Frodo-Sam storyline, because, as you know, don't really love Frodo. We'll see. I don't think I hated him as much in the book, in Fellowship, as I did in the movies. So hopefully I like this storyline more. Let's hope that tomorrow goes well. Okay? All right. Chat tomorrow.
Quiet you!
Happy Sunday, everybody. So we have started chapter 1 of the next book. So we are on with Smeagol now. So they've met Smeagol. And oh my god, one thing that I've noticed, right, is the language, the way he talks is exactly like Andy Serkis in the movies. Like the language of what he uses, we hates them, like talking to himself. His language and what he says, his dialogue is so on point. Filthy little thieves and all that, like curse them, filthy little hobbits. And they brought up the, what's the rope? The elvish rope that Galadriel gave them using that, and I'm assuming that they're gonna like tie him up with it. Like in the film they tied him up and he's like, oh, it burns, like get it off me. Are we gonna get more Faramir stuff? Are we gonna like get overlapping with Return of the King stuff? Like is that gonna overlap? Or is it gonna finish like before Shelob?
You don't have any friends. Nobody likes you.
So we have met Smeagol, we have gotten through the marshes, we are now at the gate, and I found like a couple of interesting things about their journey so far. At some point, Smeagol's just like the Frodo, we'll take the ring. Smeagol will take the ring and use it. You can go back home. The hobbits can go home. And then Frodo's like, never say that again, or else I will use this ring and you will have to obey my orders. And he's like, don't mistake my kindness for like, there was a word. Don't mistake his kindness for like ignorance. It was very like forthcoming with Gollum being like, don't think that I'm stupid. You know, I know what you're doing. I like that Frodo's not like being infected and corrupted by Gollum, because in the film he like smirks and turns around and smirks at Sam. He's staying there to look after Frodo, and he will do that until the end. Like he says that in the book. He's not going to abandon him. But there's like not much corruption of the ring on Frodo so far. There's been a couple of moments where Sam has noticed he is like weak, but there's no point where his like brain is so weak that Gollum can like really influence his actions or anything like that. So yeah, Frodo seems like to be doing okay with the ring. Don't know if that'll change, but we've gotten pretty far like into their journey. Yeah, I think people are a lot more aware of what Gollum is like, and Frodo's not acting stupid. So I'm liking Frodo more. Isn't that great? That's great. I'm liking Frodo more in the book than in the movie. I really like that Frodo calls Gollum Smeagol in the films. I think that makes a lot of sense, because you're trying to like create this connection between Frodo and Gollum to make the separation from Sam more believable. Him humanizing him, calling him Smeagol, his like original name, his first name, not calling him Gollum, not calling him a villain. He wants to give him a chance. You know, he wants to see the best in him. But I do like that they use the language of him calling him Smeagol and not Gollum. I think that that's a really easy way to show the distinction that Frodo has with Gollum in their relationship compared to Sam and Gollum. Like how it's very, very different how they see that character and how they interact with him.
Potatoes. Boil them, mash them, stick them in a stew.
It's funny. It's cute, but it's also funny. The Gollum Sam rabbit scene and the stew, and he's like, go find me herbs. And he's like, I'm not getting smelly leaves for you. And then he's like, taters, what are taters? And Sam's like, potatoes. The chapter is literally called Of Herbs and Stewed Rabbit. So they literally have a chapter about the rabbits and stew and herbs and potatoes. It's like, you're spoiling it. You're spoiling the rabbit. You shouldn't be making a fire and cooking it in a stew. You should be eating it raw. Like, no, stop it. I like that they're just like arguing over how to cook food. It's a fun chapter to lighten the mood a little bit, I think. I do feel really sad for like Gollum at times. Like I really sympathize with him. Like he's not really the villain. Like he is, but he's not really. Like when he gets captured by Faramir, I'm like, that is so heartbreaking. Like it's really sad because he's trusting Frodo. Then he's like, Master has like betrayed me. And obviously like, yes, he feels betrayed because he's like, trust Master, you know, I'm not going to hurt you. He doesn't think he's going to get hurt and then he gets hurt. So I do feel sorry for him because he was so corrupted by the ring. It's like, it's not his fault. Also, the films perfectly demonstrate the two sides of Smeagol and Gollum's personality. The scene where he talks back and forth and they have the two camera shots, one from one angle and one from the other for their particular, his particular personalities. So well done. Visually, it looks spectacular. Like that scene is so creepy, but it's so good. Like it's so on point. I love how they visually represented his personalities, his split personality. I think it's great. In the books, obviously back and forth, like them talking to each other, it makes sense. But I think in the film, it just, because you have that visual representation of it, it adds that extra like element and diversity to his character. You know, his mental state, to his personality. You see Gollum for a lot more of a multifaceted sort of character. Then it's easier to also sympathize with him, you know, and understand where he's coming from, understand his character. So I feel like in the film, because we have more of a visual aid, it kind of enhances that. When I think of that scene with Gollum and Smeagol and them talking to each other, I get Goblin and what's his face? What's his name? Norman Osborn. Like, I get that vibe from Spider-Man, the first Spider-Man. Was that in 2001?
Performance enhancers. Bingo. Me, your greatest creation.
I kind of get similar kind of vibes when they're like talking back and forth to each other. And it's creepy. It's a really creepy, like, filming sort of device, and it's very effective.
I think at last we understand one another, Frodo Baggins.
Okay, so we are now up to chapter 11, The Forbidden Pool. We have, I think, 100 pages left. Under 100 pages. About 80 pages left. Faramir's character. Super different, super interesting. The thing is that we have no, like, Faramir with daddy issues in this, like, at all. It's just strange, like the relationships between the sons and the father. Like, obviously Faramir, he's captain, but he doesn't feel any necessity to prove himself by going to the extent of like getting Frodo and taking him to Gondor. He originally was going to do that, but then he had like the full conversation with them. You know, I have no ill intent or anything. This is what your journey is. This is what the council wanted. So I will assist in any way. As mentioned in my first video, they come across a lot of not random people, but just people or beings that help along with their journey to get to Mordor, to create obstacles, but then assist them and just make that journey more interesting. In the films, they have that, but they also have character arcs and character stories attached to those. There's a lot more exploration about family dynamics, whereas in the book, there isn't so much. It's just that he's the captain of Gondor. I like both, but in the film, it's just more frustrating because I feel sorry for him because his dad's an asshole.
Smeagol? Do it.
We're done. We're done. Finished the book. Oh my god. Wow. Okay. You know what? That whole section, this whole section with Frodo and Sam and Gollum, I had not much to say, and that wasn't because like I was bored or there wasn't anything to talk about. It was the fact that I was like immersed in this whole section of this book. Literally, this whole like third of this book, I was like just immersed in this experience. I was here for about, I think it was like 5 hours, and I'm like, I don't have a lot to say, but not like in a bad way. So we had this whole climbing the stairs, Shelob's lair, had all of that section, and then Frodo being taken by the orcs and being like hidden, and then Sam finding out that he's not actually dead. That's where we finished at in the book. One of my favorite things was that Sam and Frodo didn't have like a falling out. There wasn't like this angsty shit going on between the two of them of like Frodo losing his mind, like being completely corrupted by the ring, and then Sam leaving him, Frodo telling him to leave, and then Gollum being a little bitch. Like, none of that was in this. And I was so happy about that. The Frodo-Sam ship, great. Really good. Really like that. I think one of the main differences that I've found with this book and the film is Frodo's portrayal. When it comes to the steps of the Frodo-Sam storyline, it is all the same. You know, they go through the marshes, they get to the gate, they climb the stairs, they see Shelob, Frodo gets captured, all of that. Those things like progressively happen, those plot points. But the characterization of Frodo is very different. In the films, he's written as very like at Sam, annoyed at Sam, and obviously the reason for that is because the ring is corrupting his mind. In the book, it's not like that. Frodo is smart, he is not being deceived by Gollum. I do think that even though I don't really like it and it kind of frustrates me, it does make sense for there to be some sort of angst and conflict between Frodo and Sam and them being split up in the films. Because you can't just have no like third act dilemma in the films. What they've introduced is Frodo, you know, being corrupted, Sam leaving. In the books though, they don't have that. And I don't know why. I feel like maybe it's because they wanted to focus more on the journey. They're plot driven, the books. The films are character driven. That's just my interpretation of it. And I think that that's why they probably made that big change to create conflict between Frodo and Sam and their relationship. Now I have Return of the King left. I don't know how long it is. It's in my drawer over there. So I shall get to it eventually. Yeah, good book. Really good. Certain differences, some of them I liked, some of them not so much. If I'm comparing Fellowship and Two Towers, maybe I liked Fellowship more. I don't know. After reading this book, I have so much more appreciation of the extended editions and just scenes in general. Like, I love the extended edition so much more after reading this book. Things just feel so much more important and don't feel like, oh, it's not necessary. Before reading the books, there are certain scenes where I'm like, I really don't like this. And I can understand why it would have been cut out for the theatrical. Like, it makes sense. But after reading the book, these scenes feel like they're not just throwaway scenes anymore. I feel like for the normal movie goer, and even for myself before reading the books, there's just scenes where I'm like, I don't really care. But after reading the book, I'm like, I love these scenes. But this is what I mean, read the books, and you can really love the films a lot more and appreciate them and engage with them a lot more after reading the book. I'm so happy I did. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Look out for part 3, which will happen eventually. Let me know all of your thoughts about Lord of the Rings, the movies, the books. Have you read them? Have you watched them? Theatrical, extended, all of that. Leave all your thoughts and everything down in the comments. We'll have a little chat. Hope you guys enjoyed, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.